What is your 100-year vision? Because when you look at 100 years from now, it's not even your grandchildren, it's your great-grandchildren or your great-great-great-grandchildren who are going to be around. Even if you're building a legacy, it's not for your kids. It's for humanity.
The Biyani Association.
He took to design like a duck to water. And he said that, look, I want to work with a design company that will grow as I grow. There were 2 or 3 reasons why we set up Idiom. One was to do the projects of scale that a country like India needs. The second was to...
You, by design, created organizations where you would pass on the reins.
Yeah.
What happened to Idiom Design as a result of which it did not continue?
You know, we sometimes, we don't give culture its place. We were the product of 2 firms merging together.
Sustainability is a big conversation globally. Its policy is being stuck there, all of that. How does one impact that?
I think impermanence is something that we all have to come to grips with. And the world is not such a safe place as it was back then. Numbers were smaller, so everything was a little more controllable. But I mean, not an excuse for all the tightness that is happening today. Plus,
I'm in my late 40s. I have very little time to do all the things that you've done. My life has gone in a different road. How would you suggest that I think forward for myself?
if you ask me what is my superpower today, is
So Creative Spark Plug is a black book of creative journeys. In this podcast, we speak with creative people and record their stories. It inspires youngsters. It gives insight into creative lives and nourishes the ones feeling challenged. Today, we are speaking with Jacob Mathew. Jacob Mathew and I also have a personal connect. I worked in Dovetail. We've spoken with people who are related to Dovetail and created it in the past. John is Jacob's brother. If you've heard that episode before, John is the older one, he's the younger one. We'll hear his version of the story. Sandeep Mukherjee was a part of Tesseract and DAG, Design Action Group. So those are the 2 people who are simultaneously coming out and doing things and creating impact from a creative point of view. And Bangalore creative space was getting nourished and illuminated both. So today we'll be speaking with Jacob and listening to his version of the story and his experiences as well. Our curiosity of wanting to have this conversation with Jacob has got multiple dimensions. I personally know Jacob, apart from the fact that he was one of the founders and a partner at Dovetail, where I worked for the longest time, and metaphorically married to that organization. But apart from that, a lot of me and a lot of people I know in this fraternity look at him as somebody who's both entrepreneurial and creative at the same time. And he continues to be relevant. And we will see how is it that he continued with his relevance, what took him to do that, what got him to do that, and his experiences of, in general, being in multiple industries, at times wearing multiple hats at the same time, and a lot more stories that he will add color to. So welcome, Jacob, to Creative Spark Plug.
yep, thank you.
Would you like to get into where he started off? We kind of have an idea,
do have an idea, but I think we'll start from there. So what got you into a creative field?
You were also born in Singapore, no?
Yeah. I was born in Singapore. All 4 of us brothers were born in Singapore. My dad and mom were working there. My mom was a government. And interesting life both of them had. They landed up in Singapore during or just after the Second World War. So Singapore's ambition at that time was, when we grow up, we want to be like Ceylon, Sri Lanka today.
Right.
Sri Lanka or Ceylon was the developed model country for them. And my mom was actually handpicked for a job by Lee Kuan Yew. He later became the prime minister, but he was in the public utilities department. I think one of the stories that we remember from my mom was after the Japanese had left and the British took Singapore back again, there was rampant child malnutrition. And she was tasked with eradicating malnutrition. And they did it in 3 months with a combination of iron-fortified rice from Australia and a local way of preparing dried small fish called ikan bilis.
Shutki in Bengali. Shutki in Bengali.
Yeah, those tiny fish.
Yeah.
No? So dried fish and peanuts, roasted peanuts with iron-fortified rice. In 3 months, there were no malnutrition kids left in Singapore. So quite an interesting start to her career. She worked in the government of Singapore. But why did I get into the creative profession?
So you also moved to Chennai?
No. I went to Trivandrum. I was too young to go to the school that my brothers went to.
Yeah.
So I was packed off to stay with a relative in Trivandrum and then boarding school in Trivandrum.
Right.
Yeah. I was, I think, 6 years old then.
Right. And when did NID happen?
NID happened because of John. I was, back in the day, there were only 2 or 3 professions that were acceptable. The usual. In my family, well, you could become a man of the cloth, become a priest, and then move up to a bishop. So that's what my mom wanted for at least one of us to do, to become a priest.
Did anybody become a priest?
Her brother was a priest.
Right.
Her brother was a priest.
And did he name you guys?
No, the names were the system, the Syrian Christian system. So I'm named after my grandfather's younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
So my name Jacob comes from that. John's name comes from my mother's father, our maternal grandfather, who was John. And Samuel, of course, was my grandfather. Yeah. The reason I got into the creative field was because of John.
Okay.
I was preparing for my board exams, and after that, it was going to be medicine. So I like science.
Right.
So for me, the natural thing was to gravitate towards medicine. And so I dropped math in high school to focus on what they call PCME.
Yeah. Biology.
Yeah, biology. I love biology. But John had gotten into NID. And by, again, a lucky accident, he was not very academically inclined. So he flunked his first attempt at PU because he didn't have enough attendance. And then he went to his old school counselor. He was in college at that time. Plus 2 was done in college in Chennai. He went to his school counselor who told him about this place called NID. There's something called design. He applied, he got in. And during the vacations, he would bring his work back home and he'd be working at home. And I just fell in love with what he was doing.
Nice.
And then it was that design was the only thing for me. So I applied to NID when my time came. Went for the interview. I thought I had done very badly because I got fingered by the psychologist on the panel.
Drop the name. I think we've heard his name before.
Pulin Garg.
Of course. Pulin Garg, everybody knows.
Fabulous human being. But at that time, he was quite an intimidating character.
Mukul also spoke extensively about it, whether he can make and break people.
Yeah. He was also at IIM Ahmedabad. Many years later, I got to know him, more like a friend. And I remember spending one Holi at his house where he made a very potent bang. And I think one of the young guests, IIM Chappie, went into the kitchen to get some bang. He found a glass of the concentrate and downed the whole thing.
Oh.
And half an hour later, so I'm being carried out, stiff as a plank. So after that, I think we became pretty good friends, I would say. And Pulin had a very interesting life. So we saw another side of him. I think during the freedom movement, he was one of those activist types.
Right.
They were on the violent side of things in Bihar, I think.
Right.
And they were shot at. His girlfriend died. And then he was carrying her body around for about 3 days because they couldn't find the time and space to bury her or cremate her or whatever. You're saying by the end of the 3rd day, there were maggots coming out of her body. And so, when you learn that somebody's been through that kind of ordeal, your imagination of that person changes. And he turned out to be a very compassionate person. And he was doing some very interesting experiments. And again, years later, speaking to Ashok Chatterjee, who was the director of NID when I joined, I asked him one day that my batch had 23 students. And we applied from all over India. And I was asked him that such a big country, how come you find only 23 students? And I said that if there was one more who was worthy, would you have taken them? Or did you have a cutoff at 25? He said, no. We would pick, if they were good enough, we would pick them. That's what he told me. But the numbers were usually in that bracket, 20, 25. And Pulin and he were trying experiments with different batches. So my batch turned out to be largely people from small towns. So I was from Trivandrum. Neelam was from, well, by that time, Dehradun and Ahmedabad. We have a friend who's called Agra Ka Dabral, Sonal Dabral. So he's Agra Ka Dabral. So it was interesting. The batch senior to us, which had people like Sujata Guha, we used to call them the cutlets because they were from the big cities and they were very sophisticated compared to us. We were all the Gati types and we were called the pakodas. They were the cutlets. And then the next year again, they went back to the big city kids and they were the mini cutlets. So when we do get together, we joke about that.
So amongst us, you're the cutlet, I'm the pakoda. I'm a small town. Nobody knows where I come from.
Say pakoda main bhi hu.
Hey, Bangalore, bada city hai.
But years later, when we were hiring, when we started our own companies and we were hiring, we kept to look out, at least I kept to look out for pakodas. People who are from small towns who had the fire to, prove themselves, were eager to learn. And that's helped us in many ways to seek out people who are really from other India. So I think that has also, in a sense, that little selection experiment in NID, I think also moved me personally towards looking at the other India. Yeah. So people like us are in the top 10% of the population. I've just been doing some research on it based on something that I'm doing right now with Mr. Biyani. So Mr. Biyani is starting a sort of an incubator for co-founders. They want people from all over India to apply for it, to become a co-founder with him in businesses that they're going to start. And one of the things that we're looking at again is the other India, but the businesses are going to be focused only on the top 10% of India, which is the consuming public.
Right.
He did all that big bazaar and democratizing retail, and we've been all part of that. You too.
I started with that,
story.
right?
Yeah. So I think
he's done all of that.
I know. I was fascinated by people who sort of cater to the other India. And so that's been, in a sense, the trajectory of my life. And
how did NID impact you?
So NID was mind-blowing in a sense that it just opened up your head. The first time I went to a planetarium, and you go into this dark room, and then when the projectors come on and the sky lights up, it's like having the top of your head blown off, and then you're out there in the open. The darkness becomes infinite. NID for me was like that. It was like getting your skull blown up, and then you see the world very, very differently. And again, there are those few teachers who make a deep impression on you. We had a guy named Mohan Bandari.
Yes. And
Bandari was a huge influence. And he always used to talk about what he called childlike freshness. How can you look at the world as if you're a child, seeing it for the first time, building a sort of curiosity. And he really inculcated that in him. And he didn't have boundaries of, I'm your teacher and you're my student. Most of the time we would hang out in his house, in his balcony, and he would make chai for all of us.
Nice.
He'd talk about his days in Nagpur, going to the akhadas and watching those wrestlers
swing
practice in spring.
Swaminathan was like that for me.
Yeah.
You happen to know him?
Yes. We became friendly at
Tesseract.
in Ahmedabad.
Ahmedabad, yeah.
In Ahmedabad. I found Arun when I went across to the School of Architecture for they had a workshop on bamboo structures, lightweight structures, with Fry Otto's assistant. And that's where I met Arun. And I found a sort of a kindred soul.
The connection goes back to college.
Yeah. And we were not in the same college. The School of Architecture had an open campus. You could walk in and out. I also met Jog Leutzinger there, who later married Arun's sister.
Swiss.
And I just built a house in Goa, and all my door frames are made by George out of coconut wood, glue lamp coconut wood.
Nice.
Yeah. And NID I think also we used to have a person who used to come and teach us plastics as a material. And he used to take us to all the small scale industries to, see injection molding or blow molding or, it was actually through visiting factories. More than the material, I got really interested in the people who are running the enterprises because they were a different breed. These enterprising Gujarati businessmen who were trying out this new material and then doing all kinds of jugaad to do it. I also remember, I think this whole thing of entrepreneurship and making. My uncle was a manager of a rubber estate in Kerala, which belonged to the Archbishop. It was a Catholic, he had become a Catholic. Right. And he was in charge of the rubber estate. He took me one day to see a factory because he was supplying latex to the factory that made coir mattresses. I went to this factory. The entire factory was made out of bamboo. All the machines were made out of wood. I mean, the motors were, of course, there. Some of the frames were slotted angle line. And all the machinery had been made by this man by hand. And they were making mattresses. They had a machine for twisting coir into rope. And then he had this contraption with nails sticking out, which would untangle the rope. Coil. But it would then be a little springy. Then it would be spread out on a conveyor belt made out of bamboo. And then it would go up into a latex spraying area, latex with one of those chemicals mixed. And he had a spray gun fitted on a bicycle chain that would go back and forth and spray. I mean, it was a complete jugaad operation, but he was making good quality. I must have been 11 or 10 or 11 or something when I saw that factory. And so I think that, this thing of interest in entrepreneurship started off with that. People being engineers to the core. One of the factories that I visited in Rakyal in Ahmedabad was a factory that made bangles. Wow. So he had these tubes which were rotating in a hot water bath. Everything hand fabricated, and plastic monomer was put into and sealed in the tubes, and those tubes would rotate in hot water and it would polymerize inside that. And then you get a acrylic tube, then you take it and cut it into bangles. Oh, yeah. So
process.
I think my interest was not so much in the process itself, but how those guys did it, and how they made literally something out of nothing except their brains. Yeah. So when it came from time for me to do my diploma project, I called my diploma project the Design Entrepreneur. And I went to Sethuraman, who was the chairman of product design that time. And I said, this is what I want to do. I want to do a sort of a project on how designers can become entrepreneurs. And, while they do their consulting business, they're also in the making business. And Setu gave me an extension of 3 months at the time I registered. It was a 6-month project, but he said, you're not going to finish it. Here's 9 months, but finish it in 9 months. In the process, I took 14 months. There was a time that John was setting up a studio line. And I took studio line as my guinea pig, the basis for that. So along with writing up on, the manuals on how to become an entrepreneur, I actually made a small manual, how to become a design entrepreneur, illustrated by Arijit Sen. He made all the marginal illustrations. I did the illustration for the cover, which was a guy on a motorbike holding a rope ring and tilting at the windmills. Sort of, I think I had a premonition that this is really like fighting windmills. Impossible fight, but it's been a good journey. And a lot of the students that I've met after that, I kind of tell them that, take your final project seriously, because chances are this is what you'll be doing for the rest of your life. And I'm still actually continuing my diploma project. It never stopped. So during that time, we started Tesseract. We were all I had come to Bangalore to study what Studio Line was doing. And Sundar worked for a short period in Design Action Group, which was the first real independent design consultancy, I think, anywhere in India at that time. One of the earliest. Arun Khanna was there in Pune.
Matrix
Design. So as part of my research, I went to all the independent design studios in India at that time. So I met people like Sunil Patel, Arun Khanna, Pradeep Sinha, and so they were sort of the pioneers. And in Bangalore, of course, we had Design Action Group, and John had set up Studio Line based on, when we were students, we would write out for catalogs to all the manufacturers in the world, and they would look at our address, National Institute of Design, and they would send us catalogs. So I still remember John got a packet from a German company called Studio Line, EE. Yeah, and I think the name that inspired the name Studio Line. Studio Line was actually it was a poster which said Studio Line. I think it was a line of furniture that factory made.
N-I-N-E-E.
L-I-N-E-E.
L-I-N-E-E.
Yeah, Studio Line. I think it was a range of furniture, but I think that name stuck for John, and he started that. We were all part of a band also. We called it the Barracks Blues Band, because at NID, before the hostel for men were made, there were the old construction sheds, a line of workers, the workers' line, so to say, and they hadn't demolished that. That became our first hostel. Oh. So John was also in that. When he joined NID, he was in that hostel. I think mine was the last batch that used that as the hostel.
Right.
So it was these
little... What is Barracks, what brand?
So we had our band was called the Barracks Blues Band. In fact, even today there is a Bangalore Barracks Blues Band. Yeah, it's a continuation of that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So when we moved to Bangalore, we continued the Barracks Blues Band out of a house that we had in first block, Koromangala.
Who's there in Bangalore Barracks Blues Band?
I think it's Vinny, Mathew, and some of the guys who Chronic Blues Band.
Yeah.
Yep. So they were all part of that circle. Sundar was learning the drums, so we had a drum kit in our house. And after 11, our house became the Bangalore Adda for everybody. Right. Everybody in Bangalore would land up in a house. It was called 119, house number 119, first block, Koromangala. And even now, a few years back, I was taking an Indigo flight, Jet Airways flight, back when Jet was functioning. The captain came out of the thing and he said, "Hi." I said, "Hi, do I know you?" He said, "No, I used to come to your place, 119. So, yeah, we had a thing going. I think there were several things that happened. I mean, we were a group of friends from different years. So when we started Tesseract, there was Anand, who was doing his final project forever in Matrix. He was designing a tractor for Kirloskar. I was doing my project with John ostensibly, but I was doing it independently, but using Studio Line as my
yeah. And so Sundar also did something. We tried to make a dolly or something like that.
Sundar worked with Sanjay Shah. They were making a film called Holi at FTII. Right. And he designed the track crane.
It's called a dolly, I
think,
if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. It was a crane on which you mounted a camera. And they made a prototype and they used it for shooting the movie. At some point, one of the joints broke and the whole thing came crashing down. Yeah. So Sundar was doing that. Sundar also needed to make ends meet. So he took up a job with Wipro at a princely salary of 800 rupees a month. 800 or 900. Sundar will probably remember. And we decided to start the company. That was in September 1985, was when we formed Tesseract. And Anand and I were still finishing our diplomas.
Dude, were you born? You were born.
I was 3 years old.
You're 3 years old.
1 year old.
You're 1 year.
85, no? 3 years old.
Many years later, I interviewed somebody for Tesseract, an architect from Roorkee. And so I asked him, "Where did you do school?" And he said, "Trivandrum." I said, "Which school?" He said, "St. Thomas." I myself, St. Thomas. I said, so happy to meet somebody from my old school. Then it turned out that he was born the year I left school. Manu Neil. Manu Neil. Yeah. That was him.
Oh, nice. By the way, I mean, one of the first few people who spoke about treating you as a mentor was Manu. Jacob.
Yeah. No, I think what was interesting about Tesseract was we were a group of friends from different batches. Sundar and Anand were, I think, 2 years senior. 1 year senior, 2 years senior to us, I think. 2 years senior to us. John was 3 years, 4 years senior. Sandeep and I were
Batchmates.
batchmates.
Both of you guys were in the band.
Yeah, we were all in the band. There was another guy named Tridivesh Sanyal, who was also in the band. And we used to practice in the barracks in a tiny room with a tin sheet, an asbestos sheet roof. And the sound was so much. So one day, I think John was playing a very fierce bass line. And Tridivesh, I think, played the morshank and various other instruments. I played the blues harp. There was so much of noise in the room that Tridivesh said that, look, this noise is making me see only colored vibrations in the red. Right? So that became a song.
My curiosity, what did he consume before that? He was seeing colors in music.
Various things that we were consuming, but mild stuff. I mean, nothing very, nothing very serious. Yeah, but I think there was a spirit of, it was more like brothers in a band. And therefore, we were very inclusive. Anybody who came in became one of the bros. Bros as a term came in much later. But so even when somebody like Manu joined us, I think we had a system of being inclusive and being very equal. So anybody who came into our system, I don't know how it was years later when you joined Dovetail, but maybe that spirit continued of being, when it came to taking creative decisions and having a voice, I think everybody's voice was listened to. Not necessarily heard, but listened.
You had you were given the mic.
Yeah. And if it was good, then it... we had also a system where when we had a client and there were 4 of us, Sandeep was super fast. He was very skilled, but he's the only guy, I think, in our group who finished his diploma on time. He did a daba with another guy named Kedar Joshi. They did dabas for the Madhya Pradesh Tourism Department, for tourism and for truck drivers. He finished his project on time. So, all of us would generate concepts, and whoever concept got selected by the client, then he was it. He would have to complete then it became his project and he had to complete it and deliver. Except Anand. If Anand's thing got selected, then one of us would take it over to make sure it would get completed, because Anand was a perfectionist. He wouldn't let go until everything was perfect. And for him, it didn't matter how long it took.
I think, do you remember Derek, engineer Derek?
Yes.
I think Derek's spiritual alignment is with Anand.
Anand, yeah. No, Derek learned his stuff from Anand.
See,
and
I didn't see them together, but I know where the spirit came from.
Yeah. That thing of getting everything right. Derek, then there was another guy named J.S. Manjunath, became a draftsman. So when we disbanded, or rather, at some point, this whole thing of scale came up. And how do we create things at scale? And by that time, I'd started working with Mr. Biyani. And Mr. Biyani was a guy who actually nudged me into looking at things with scale. We were traveling in Bombay. We were going to Pune, driving down to Pune. And we couldn't find his driver couldn't find the entrance to the expressway. And he said, kya yaar, tum log, designer log, National Institute of Design, the national highway banaya, kuch signage nahi hai. Now, what are you guys doing? Is there a company in this country that has the scale to take on a project like doing the signage for all the national highways in India? So that he threw in as a challenge. And at that moment, I remember there was an Indian Airlines plane flying overhead. And I said, wo logo dekho, wo NID ne kiya. He said, ek logo is very different from doing signage for the country. But he planted a thought that, for a country of close to 1 billion people then, you don't have design companies that can take on the big challenges of the day. And he said that if you guys are willing to do it, I'm willing to back you. That's how we actually formed Idiom. Yeah.
This is a very interesting topic, right? Like the Biyani Association, because I was a beneficiary of it in some sense. When I came in, there was a paradigm shift in my mind as well, because suddenly I was thrown this problem, which might be very technical, and I may have at that point of time perceived it as, isme design ka kya hai? But from a scale point of view, it was intrinsically designed, or else this wouldn't have been possible.
No, and he took to design like a duck to water. He said, like, I understand what you guys are doing. I understand why this is important. I also understand that every business has to be design driven, something that he caught on intuitively too. He's actually a few months younger than me.
Right.
But I ended up spending a lot of time with him. He was also setting up business. And he said that, look, I want to work with a design company that will grow as I grow. And so Idiom also sort of grew. At one point, we were about 250 people.
I remember those days.
And we had a project management team. I think 80 people were only into project management. The rest of us were doing all kinds of design, from branding and so on. We had the sense that we were engaged in nation building, which I think all designers can and need to do. Be part of the, because the generation before us had the opportunity to actually build India as an independent country. Sometimes you wonder even how Indians operate, how they actually pulled it off. I came across a doctoral thesis, a book written on a doctoral thesis by an Israeli scholar whose husband is a friend, Israeli chap. And she had done, her thesis project was looking at the Constituent Assembly that actually did a lot of, they asked people to send in letters on what their vision of India should be. And they got tens of thousands of letters from, all kinds of people from across India. And a lot of those inputs went into the writing of the Constitution of India. So it's actually, when you look back at it, it was a huge exercise in participatory design of a country. There was a lot of, today you wouldn't think that, that seems like a top-down thing, or we
the first thing that
everything together. And
but as I'm listening to you, I'm like, we're talking about inclusion, and that is being inclusive. That is what anybody would love. And
so we knew that we had come into a country that was built on a certain, it was imagination. And it was really about imagination of what India could become and how it should be to every citizen. And I think that sense of inclusion, now all of this is hindsight. When you, after many years, when you look back at other things that were happening in this country, you find that, okay, you were part of that continuum in a sense. And when we set up Tesseract, the usual thing, we sat down meeting at our dining table. We had a solid rosewood dining table that we had hired from Saleh Ahmed, which we kept telling Saleh Ahmed to sell to us. He said, no way. And we had that for the longest time, until we got married and we all set up our own homes. Otherwise, we were all living in the same house. And our garage was the office, the 119, where the band drum set was. So we sat at that table and said, what are we about? What should we be doing? Sundar, Anand, Sandy, and me. And we said that, look, we want to make sense. We want to make sense with design. And we used that as a sort of, so our first thing was, making sense through design. And a lot of our decisions were impacted by that. I remember at that time, we were invited by one of the big architecture firms here that specialized in doing these 5-star hotels. And they wanted us to do furniture for them. I think they're still around. I think the children are still running the firm. I'm not sure.
Are they the ones who did the Chinnaswamy Stadium?
No, they were doing interiors largely.
Interiors.
And, but luxury interiors of that time. Architecture firm. Anyway, they gave us a job. And then we had a meeting to say that, is this the kind of work that we want to take? And then we turned it down. We said, like, budget ka kuch constraint nahi hai. Jo bhi material use karna hai, use karo. And, the objective was to spend as much money as you possibly can. It was a strange thing. And we said, like, that doesn't fall into our making sense with design ethic.
Hey, if the project is still around, can I have it?
No, we didn't take it. We didn't take it. Yeah. My first offer of, as a individual, somebody who just graduated, was I had a mentor in Ahmedabad, Hakusha, the painter, Parthiv's dad. So I used to go to his house and generally hang around, meet some very interesting people. I met Philip Morrison, who was part of the Manhattan Project. They developed the first atomic bomb. And he was then the editor of Scientific American.
Oh.
And he had polio as a kid, so he was crippled. He couldn't use his legs. He was somebody I met at Hakubai's house on kite flying day. So Hakubai was a huge influence. So he called me up one day and said that, some friends of his, so big jewelers from Gujarat, are doing a wedding in Bombay. But for that time, it would have been like an Ambani's, well, not Ambani, but a wedding of that sort. And he said that they want to make 2 villages in that Maidan. They take over part of the Maidan, and they wanted to build a bride's village and a groom's village, and then there's a Milan there, and then so he wanted me to be part of the team or to direct the team that would build those villages. And I think the fee offered to me that time was 2 lakh rupees, and we were earning $500 a month at that time. That was a dole that we gave ourselves, and 2 lakhs was a huge amount of money. But I said that, look, what's the meaning of this? Is this something that I want to do? Because I mean, somehow instinctively, you know that whatever you do sort of then sets the course for what you'll do after. So we turned down that project as well.
Okay.
So it was interesting. We ended up doing a lot of low cost work by choice. And in those days, fees were based on a percentage of the finished thing. So we then moved our fee structure to a lump sum fee, saying that regardless of what it costs, this is the fee I get. And we said that the more low cost it is, the higher the designer's fee is, because we have to work harder. And that didn't really work, but that's the kind of thing that we chose to do. Yeah, so that set a trajectory for Tesseract as a company. So we started off with making sense through design. Then we started noticing that a lot of the companies that we were doing work for ended up becoming successful. So we said, okay, what is it that we are doing with design that is giving us a better rate of success than other companies? We didn't do a comparison, but we just knew that our clients were doing pretty well with whatever we did, with this low-cost, frugal approach to design. And one of my earliest clients was Weekender, the Gokuldas Images.
Yeah.
And it started off with, we didn't want to do interiors. At NIT, when you did product design, the worst thing that you could do after graduating was to do interiors. And we considered that anybody who did interiors had sold out the position. I think there were 2 thoughts that came to us. One is that you're working for business. Business needs to make money. You need to understand business if your design has to succeed. So we would always talk to our clients about their business. What is it what does success look like for them? So even people like Manu, when he was designing interiors, that thing got stuck in his head. What's the kind of sales per square foot that this space should deliver? How do I make sure that much of stock is kept? What kind of stock turns will we do? So we started talking the language of business. And luckily, Mr. Hinduja, who owned Gokuldas Images, was happy to share his business figures with us.
Nice.
Usually the shops would open Friday evening. So that first day, first show, we'd get the sales figures. And we would track the sales figures maybe for a month after every new store opened. So we had an idea of whether it succeeded, didn't succeed, then why didn't it succeed? So a lot of the things like in retail, they say that, it's location, location, location very often. We also developed a side expertise in finding locations, of scouting out locations, looking at, field of view, what is the kind of traffic there? Will a person passing by in a car be able to see your storefront? So all that became, and then Manu was given the job of actually putting this into an SOP in illustrated terms, so that our clients could also understand and, pick the right kind of property that we would then go and vet. So later when I started working with Biyani, we became also property scouters. And we would go and say whether a property was good or not, which was something that I don't think other designers
Were doing.
got to do. Design and art schools train you to be slightly left of center. And we realized very quickly that our clients, at the end, you need to have a relationship with money and the making of money. For us, that became clear that our design was, so we moved from, what we called making sense by design. Our next sort of slogan was success by design. How do we deliver success by design? And that worked for us.
Hold on. You guys are changing gears here. Somewhere in the late 80s, You had already met Biyani.
Yeah, I know, but he was much later, 95 or so. Before
You'd
that, we
already
were
DAG, Tesseract, Dovetail, all of this had kind of started getting incubated. Some states.
yeah.
some did not.
DAG
So
by that time had become
wrapped up.
defunct.
Yeah.
John was full time into Studio Line,
Studio Line.
and then Dovetail was started much later.
Yeah.
Because there was an itch of doing stuff that you wanted to do. I mean, can you? Not everything is client driven, but can you do something that is self driven? And when we were designing furniture for projects, so again, I'll just take a little detour to say how we got into interiors as a space. It was with Mr. Hinduja. We went only to design the fixturing system. He said, I don't know if a location will work. I don't know if my landlord will throw me out. So I need something that I can set up in 24 hours. And in 12 hours, I should be able to move and set up in another location if it comes to that. So we had to do a modular, dismantleable system. And Sundar then developed what we call the cat pole system. No? So that, in photography, it's called the king pole, where you jam it between the floor and ceiling. We found a small aluminum caster, sand casting unit that would make the clamps and all that for us. And we made that for many years. I think we did 65 or 67 shops for them across the country, and some in neighboring countries like Dubai, the Maldives, Nepal. John went to set up the Nepal shop.
Right. And this is all for weekender.
All for weekender. But again, Mr. Hinduja then said, okay, you've done the system. I like it. It works. I like your work. Just tell me what flooring I should do, what lighting I should do, and what. So we got, it was literally that camel story, no?
Yeah.
The camel came in and then said, no. So finally we ended up doing full shop interiors.
Right.
And then the communication thing also started. Like, how do we jazz up the shop? What kind of graphics do we do? So then for one of the projects, we roped in Arijit. Arijit had just passed out. And that was the year that there was a plane crash here in Bangalore. The first A320 plane crash that crashed in the golf course. And so among the graphics that Arijit did, one was of that plane crash. And in a retail space, our client really flipped. I think we had to remove that particular picture. But Arijit did a lot of experiments where, the graphics were three-dimensional. He was using textiles that were being used for the fashion and then creating murals with that.
But I'm not surprised Arijit do something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if he could, he would have called out a lot of people at that point of time itself.
Yeah.
I don't know him as a youngster, but yeah.
That time he was purely in the experimental mode.
Right.
And yeah.
And
so for us, that thing of, finding people, and you have a circle of influence or a circle of friends, and then you invited some of them to come and collaborate with you on projects. So that sense of being, Tesseract was not just Tesseract, but Tesseract was a full circle of friends and influence whom we would call in for projects. And so there was a lot of collaboration. Our Naresh was somebody that we met through, I think, Arun, if I'm not mistaken.
Narasimhan.
No, actually, Arun. Naresh went to visit Matrix, met with Anand. Then we met with Naresh. We got along very well. Then we met his father, got along even better with his father. And his father had just taken his office space in Langford Town.
Yeah.
And he said, I've got more space than I can use. Do you want to take some of it? We said, we don't have money to pay rent. He said, you'll start earning. Whenever you start earning, you pay me the rent. Start paying me the rent in arrears. So we did that. So I think for the first 6 months, we couldn't pay him rent. And and we were in that place for a long time, central. And it became a sort of magnet for any designer, even our old faculty. Anybody who came through Bangalore would come to our office in the evening. Then we'd go down for a beer, wherever. And it became a sort of an adda.
Right.
So that barracks culture continued of being the sort of melting pot for ideas. With Arun, that exposure to Fryoto's structures. We did the first tensile structure in Bangalore.
Yeah.
And he told us a story about how he came back from Norman Foster.
He did mention it on our podcast. The third one we recorded was with him.
With Arun. Yeah. So that was good fun.
Tensile structures, what was the project about? How did that come into being? So one of the things that I'm trying to trace while we are having this conversation is the preliminary bit. Of course, you have your own perspective on DAG and 119 and all of that. What I hear from you, distinct from others, is the fact that you looked at this as a cultural hotspot. There's the barrack, and there was a cultural aspect to this, which was there was a lot of equity. So anybody who came inside had some equity, had a say, and there was egalitarianism in some sense. Like you were an equal. You didn't treat anybody as "Acha, tu chota hai ya tu bada hai," kind of a thing.
I think that came from being at NID also, because everybody there was on first term names. Ashok Chatterjee we called AC or Mr. Chatterjee because we respected him. Couldn't really call him Ashok. Although now I have to occasionally call him Ashok. He's just turned 90.
Right.
I was in a call with him just a few days ago. And there was only one person in the entire institute who insisted that we add a Mr. to his name. But otherwise, everybody was first name in class, everywhere. Bandari, for instance, in the middle of the class, he'd say, "Hey, bhai, you have a cigarette?" And then he would light up in class. I mean, until an accident happened and then smoking was banned in the studios. So we used to bum cigarettes off our teachers and our teachers would bum cigarettes off us. And
I think
that
should
sort of
come
sets
back as a-
When I joined college also, no, I mean, as was this little, it was a tinier well in an oasis called NIFT until I literally saw the culture change. But one of the so-called passion or hobby projects that most students did was they were told to wait for this. You first do this design process, which came at the end of the year. And the first thing that people did by then was they were told that, okay, make your own ashtray. So everybody had this sliding ashtray, something like that. So everybody did the first design project after doing design methods or design process. That is what people actually did. So when I was talking about my initial things, although the pamphlet had come inside saying that, college rules or institution rules and all of that, we were still a lot more comfortable. We were working through the night. Faculty stayed back. One of the
studios were kept open.
Yeah.
And so that style of teaching should come back, at least for a design course. It's so...
Yeah, but when you scale, I think those checks and balances come inside. Then it gets...
Also, things have changed. The world is not such a safe place as it was back then. Numbers were smaller. So everything was a little more controllable. But I mean, not an excuse for all the tightness that is happening today. Plus, we are also complicit in it. We've helicoptered our children. Yeah. So right now, I won't be surprised if soon we'll have parents sitting in a jury. When the child is going through a jury. I was beginning to see that.
That's what it
parent teachers,
Were you
they would
talking
give it
to
a
them
fancy
like
name.
this?
Parent teachers inclusive jury.
Yeah.
So
What is this inclusion? I'll give you another anecdote about Bandari. So Bandari's rented place. He had a first floor house, which was overlooking the barracks with a with a road outside the campus. So he had a house just outside the campus, and we had a barracks. There was a fence, road, then his house. So from his balcony, he could see what we were up to in the barracks. So one day we had tied a rope, made a sort of a rope ladder to a big neem tree that was growing outside. So he said, "Hey, bhai, maybe aata hun," and he jumped from his balcony onto the tree, and then right on top of that, he's really looking like a langur. And he sort of hunched up like that and he's laughing at us. And the branch broke and he came down with a thud. Quite a height. We were very worried. No, we just picked him up and ran him so he could get his diaphragm working again. But I mean, that kind of thing where a faculty member, he's just like one of you.
Yeah.
I think that culture really influenced us.
Yeah, I think it needs to come back because that's the only way you connect with design and the teaching and all of that. Yeah, otherwise, it's so nowadays it's the design teaching itself. I don't know. You teach it.
There were, John as a teacher. John is a fantastic teacher. Both
And people
at college and at and he's a stern teacher in a sense that he'll take your case. John's teacher, Upadhyay, he didn't give a damn about convention. So when I was doing my diploma, I was not in furniture. And he always thought that product designers doing furniture was a bad idea. He once saw a rig for my final project. I'd made a chair. Among the things that I had to do to complete my design entrepreneurship thing was I had to design an office system. And out of that office system, I had to design an office chair. It's not the easiest thing to do. But I had made an ergonomic testing rig using slotted angle racks. Upadhyay walks into the studio, takes a look at that rig, and he says, these product designers, they should not do furniture. What is this? This is not a chair. This is an apparatus. And I was not there. Then when I came back to the studio, somebody related this to me that, no, Upadhyay said your chair is an apparatus. I said, that is my apparatus. It's an ergonomic rig. It's not my chair. Anyway, but Upadhyay is one of those guys. Anand and Sundar were roommates. They would wake up at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. Upadhyay was getting the hostels built. He was the architect for the hostels as well. On his way to the site visit, he would come knock on their doors. 10 minutes, and then he'd go do his site visit, come back, come to the room, and then look at their work.
Wow.
Yeah. At the PDF, some years back, they gave him the fellow PDF honorary fellow thing. By the time his memory was failing, he was quite frail. I think he died the next year. So his acceptance speech was one line: I love my students. That was it. And looking back, that was what it was. He embodied that love for the work, being the precision and the care that you took for work. And that's rubbed off on all of us, even those of us who are not in furniture. And then years later, when we built that tensile structure in Palace grounds, he came to visit. He climbed up to the top. It was a single arch structure, a space frame arch with the, it was a double curved structure. Our man climbs up to the top and then jumps down onto the fabric and then lying down like that and bouncing up and down like a kid. And he used to love visiting us, coming to Studio Line. And
I've met him there.
Yeah, he was very proud of us. Yeah. When we started along the line, too many digressions. At some point in our career, we said that we should make some of this stuff, because a lot of the furniture that we design is for one time, for one project, and then it's not used again. And so we said that let's produce this and then offer it to a larger public. And we had a few principles, like the furniture was built to last.
Yes.
And there was an unwritten agreement that we will take care of it as long as we are around. Yeah. Or you are around. If you are alive and the furniture is there and it needs to be repaired, bring it to us. We'll fix it for you. We'll charge you whatever it is for it. But our furniture will never die. Yeah. So we've had people bring furniture back after 25 years and things like that. Swing chairs. And then want it restringed, repowder coated, etc.
I still know people who have bought furniture from you guys. I know them. Yeah. I'll mention them as do you know Swastika? So when I joined Dovetail, she had already used the Mustang.
Yeah.
She's used the Mustang and she wanted it reupholstered. I said, Bashop, you've joined the design store. I said, no, I've joined Dovetail. Design store belongs to the So like, can I get this upholstered? Yeah, round one happened. Then before I left, 2015, like, Bashop, can I get it upholstered? But yeah, this chair was running for the third tenure, and it is still there in our house.
Yeah. So many places we go, we still find our stuff. I was in Geeta's house this morning. Her husband passed away 3 days ago.
Yeah,
Ravi passed away. So we just gone to meet her. Yeah, the furniture in her living room is all Dovetail.
Nice.
Yeah, including Zanak's. Yeah, so this ethos of, that making sense with design also extended to making things last, being honest to materials. A lot of the things that we learn from people like Upadhyay.
What he's saying is very pertinent, right? See, to me, it's now natural to kind of align to, relate to what he's saying, because that is also my pedigree in some sense, if I have to use that term. And I see the reason behind that, which is make things that will last your lifetime. And also the generation or the time I came from, we looked at things working for us. Like my youngest uncle was 2 years older than me. I knew I got his shirts. I didn't like the process, the fact that I always had hand-me-downs. And I'm sure now I know my cousins hated it because after this. But you see, the fact that a material or a product would do its time and it was of use unless, then it didn't get over until, not when we ran out of cousins, it would go. It would become a pocha and then something until it would kind of be ready to merge with the earth. I can relate to that. Now, the question that I have, the inquiry that I have is, we live in a world where temporary as an idea of time, as one dimension of life itself, experience as being quick, validation being immediate, and usability being contained, being very contained, are a part of everybody's life. Like literally everything is in some sense communicating to us that there is time duration to this. Your cell phone has time duration, right? Your app in the cell phones have time duration. They need to be updated, or else after a little while it'll stop working. If you continue to push the same cell phone, it'll stop working. So it's a completely diametrically opposite bent of mind where you are kind of now wired to the fact that anything you have, there is a ticking clock to it of redundancy.
Including relationship.
And nice garnishing on this conversation. But yeah, of course. I mean, there are memes that say that everything you love, you're going to lose. I'm like, okay, heavy duty philosophy, but that's not the direction I'm going in. I'm just saying that now we're looking at two breeds of people, just 3 generations or at the most apart, where somebody built for it to last, if possible, forever. And somebody does not have the dimension of thought. And we can't blame them or accuse them for it. It is what they were brought up with. Quick move, if you don't use it, retain it. Like, there's this funny thing, right? Our mums kept every plastic bag. That is not because they were hoarders. That is because there is this idea of, can I use it? Or else it goes to the garbage pile. Why are we saying that? We are saying apart from that also, when the Coke bottles came inside, there was weekly a truck that used to come in the afternoons, take your old glass bottles away and give your new glass bottles back. If you collected the metal caps,
You got
you could exchange that for a gift. And so if you look at even that strategy of that cap went back as a material, they made you have more. So they, from a sales point of view or whatever, they made more business because you wanted to collect the caps and get that ball or Sachin Tendulkar's signature or a card or something like that. So that is a bent of mind in some sense, right? That recycling
there's an attitude.
Right? And here there is that bent of mind is completely diametrically opposite. And here is where the concerns have started showing. Even for water. Like I know I've gone out for walks wherein I've had stream water and nothing has happened to me. It was allowed. It was considered fresh. Today I wouldn't dare it. Right? I wouldn't even have water in a public place. I will buy myself a Bisleri or whatever, Aquafina or what have you, bottled water. So we are in a place wherein everybody is thinking temporary, quick, and in some sense, after that, the relationship with that object or time or product is over. It is not your relationship with your chappal or your cycle that passed down, and you still have that heart for it, saying that I learned cycling on that. There's a relationship with the product, right? And that also has longevity. It's not temporary. You haven't forgotten after you've given it away. It's still there. In these two diametrically opposite worlds, we are heading to a place where sustainability is a big conversation globally. Its policy is being struck there, all of that. How does one impact that? Or what would be your suggestion on how one takes it in that direction?
No, I think impermanence is something that we all have to come to grips with. And I mean, for me personally, I've had my parents live with me, my wife's parents live with me, my dad, my mom, and my wife's dad, they all died at home, in the house, not in the hospital. When you are in close contact with people that you love and who pass on, you learn something from that, what really matters in life. Like my mom was highly accomplished in her life. She died at the age of 99 and 9 months. But, the last 10 years of her life, she didn't want to talk about her work and what she did. She helped set up the Singapore Zoo, lots of milestones in her life. And she was a welfare administrator. So we had contact with a lot of the migrant labor in Singapore. I mean, she was in charge of the migrant labor for her department. 8,000 people, largely from rural Tamil Nadu. Now, of course, the demographic has changed, largely from Bangladesh now. But when you come to the end of the life, what really mattered to her was songs that she learned as a child, being with children, singing songs to them, teaching songs to them. That was her trip. With my dad, I mean, he worked, but at the end, he was a mentor to a lot of cousins. But I think finally, as designers, we can take lessons from that. The lessons I took came home rather strongly. I think the 10th or 15th year of my work, I was saying, "Arey, kuch document nahi kiya." And by that time, we could actually afford to send somebody with a camera. So Manu did some of that. But all our work had vanished because we were doing largely retail, which changes every 6 years. So, by 15 years, that interior that you've done has changed twice, either by you or by somebody else. So there's no record of what you've done. Now, in hindsight, I think what you leave behind is the values that you've created or the values that you've continued. Yeah. So for me, it's like the value of frugality, the value of making things last, of respecting materials that you use, that you don't do something just to throw away. This whole thing of Bangalore is one big garbage dump of disposable single-use plastic, for instance. Yeah. Everywhere you go, it's around you. And it doesn't have to be that way, and we are complicit in it. And if you look at how the economic system works, how capitalism works, and you can't just be working in isolation. You're part of a system. You have to understand the system. You have to understand what's wrong with the system. You have to do every small thing. You can't do big things, but you can do small things to change. What density of plastic do you use? Do you use a composite? Do you use a whole material which can be reused? Those decisions, I mean, now people are beginning to look at it, but that was something that as practitioners with a sustainability point of view, and I think, there were a bunch of us who, you learn from your peers and your seniors. You learn very little from your teachers, actually. Yeah. So we had people like Arun Khanna, Dinesh Korjan. Dinesh actually introduced me to something called the Whole Earth catalog, which is a collection. It was a guy named Stuart Brand in San Francisco who brought out this sort of tools for living kind of thing. And it was all about sustainability. So NID was one of the subscribers to it. So we used to see those magazines, and we were hugely influenced by that kind of thing. Stuart Brand went on to write a book called How Buildings Learn. And he talks about two types of architecture in the world. What is called high road architecture, which is single purpose, like a palace for a king or a temple for a god. And then there is what he called low road architecture, which is flexible, which is not grand, but is very functional. And sometimes these low road, he gives the example of the MIT Media Lab building, which was built as a temporary shed for developing radar during the Second World War. And they finally knocked it down recently because it had become unsafe. And IMPay had done the new Media Lab thing. But if you asked a professor, they said, we want to have a lab there. Because there you could cut a floor open, you could put in equipment, you could completely remodel the space. Now, you've been to the idiom space. That used to be a ITI. It used to be a technical training center, the ground floor. Upstairs was a wedding hall.
I thought it was a parish church.
Yeah, it belongs to the church. It was a church hall.
Right.
Upstairs was the hall for weddings and things like that. And downstairs, they were running an ITI. They were not getting students for fitters and things like that. Now, we took that space in 2005. We rented it from the church in 2005. Today, industry, Neelam's office works from there.
Right.
It's pretty much the same. If you walked in there, you might even see some of the graphics
from those days.
Idiom time. Even the graphics make sense. I think whatever continued to make sense has continued to be there. That large sculptural thing that Anand designed over the reception, that's there. That's done in 2005. We're still using it. And the space still works for a completely new function. You can't predict the future, but can you imagine what somebody in the future might want to change? Can you make it changeable, adaptable, instead of fixed? But you don't know what it's going to adapt to. Your job is to make it adaptable. Yeah. I think the biggest legacy, and we all talk about legacy, especially I'm 64 now, so I'm on the wrong side of.
I would have taken you there in any which case.
Yes. So you're constantly dealing with your mortality as well, and your body starts slowing down in some ways, like what you said. No, signing a check, speaking on the phone, and giving instruction. Sorry, no can do anymore. It's not fun to do anymore. You then look at the values that you have. They in turn, I mean, I believe in this thing that you have values, and a lot of the values you absorb from your influence, the people who influence you, your parents, other people who've influenced you, your teachers, those special teachers that come, your peers, etc. You imbibe those values, you live those values, and the values actually drive your behavior. And the behavior is what is perceived as culture ultimately. The culture of an organization is the aggregation of all the behaviors it does. And if the behaviors are driven by a set of values, that will show. And the good values, bad values, I mean, one is not making a judgment there. But finally, that's what you leave. And finally, as designers, what we leave is not the objects that we've designed. I mean, there might be a few that will survive. It's the people that you've transmitted your values to and who continue those values. I just bought some toys for my grandchildren, which are made by Rajesh.
Loyola.
Yeah. Loyola. Now I look at Loyola and I say that, okay, this is, and I can see Upadhyay in that.
Yeah.
Now, Rajesh has never studied under Upadhyay.
He studied under John.
Yeah, but he studied under John. So I can see Upadhyay's lineage there. And Upadhyay's lineage comes from Danish designers like Kare Klint and so on, people that he worked with. So it's like transmission of DNA. This transmission of ideas and values can go through. And there, when you design something, you are imbuing it with your value. Are you imbuing it with your value system? If you're imbuing it with your value system, then it has a certain longevity, which is not in the object, but it is in the practice. And that practice gets adopted, modified, and it continues. So, I mean, I was so happy to see Rajesh's toys, something that I'm happy to give to my grandchildren. Some of them might last long enough for them to give to their children. I spent the last week, I mean, I couldn't really go to Serendipity Art Festival. So I talked to my grandchildren. I said, what do you want for Christmas? And the older guy said, I want a shock. So I thought he wanted a surprise. And we quizzed him, what is a shock? What is a shock? I said, is it a shark? He said, no, I want a sock. So it turned out he wanted a Christmas stocking. Okay. So my wife and I have made this massive Christmas stocking because then I asked him, how big should the sock be? He said, it should be as big as a boat so I can sit inside. So we've stitched this huge Christmas stockings. Now, isme kuch dalna padega. So I spent the last week making some toy. He asked him, what do you want for Christmas? He said, I want a fire truck. So again, a little bit of interpretation with my son. And finally, it turns out he wants a truck which is on fire.
He doesn't want a fire truck.
He doesn't want a fire truck. I was asking him, do you want a ladder that swivels? And he says, no, I don't want that. He's 3 years old. So I made a flaming truck for him now, which I'm carrying with me. And for the younger one, he's not talking yet, but he sings along with us when we sing this. There's a song called Baby Beluga. So I was making a beluga whale in wood. I had some wood that I'd bought for making door frames. It was teak wood, so it's pretty hard. So shaping it is not the easiest, not having touched a machine for ages. So I was just making that thing on a sander. And, after a while each rub on the sander, you're imagining a thing, you're putting in a lot of your self into it.
Yeah.
And again, a digression into what our work stands for. So I moved out of Idiom in 2013. Yeah. And when we started Idiom, that was in 2005. And we started Idiom on April 1st, 2005, All Fool's Day. So not surprisingly, many of our clients, staff refer to us as idiots.
Right.
Which was a little insulting until Three Idiots, the movie, happened. Then it became respectable. But yeah.
Yeah, idiots.
Yeah,
First one.
Idiom Idiots was very easy to come to. The second meeting that we have, April 1st, we had a meeting where we discussed what's the kind of work that we want to do. We said sustainability is key. Using of doing more with less in terms of resources, recycling, that whole sustainability funda. And that has actually colored our work. I mean, even like initially we tried the direct approach. I remember going to Mr. Hinduja and saying that I want to use, that time CFLs had just come in.
Yeah.
And we were, all the shop lighting was power lamps, which were hungry. So we wanted to use metal halides, 35 watt metal halide versus 200 watt power lamp or CFL. They were expensive. So I went to him and said, I actually took a cutting of some seals getting clobbered, baby seals getting clobbered for fur in the Arctic. There's this dramatic picture of white snow with red blood and these cute animals with their brains bashed out. I showed it to him and I said, because of the Arctic ice cap melting, these people are they're able to access the
Coming down
pupping
south.
grounds, and then they're killing the puppies for making fur coats and things like that. He said, "मैं धंधा चला रहा हूँ यार, मेरे को ये सब क्यों नहीं कर रहे?" And I'm trying to sell him energy efficient lights and showing him baby seals. It was ridiculous. I went with a new pitch saying, "Sir, do you know that in 15 years you will save so much money that you can whatever. I gave him the economics of the whole thing. I got my sanction. We changed everything to CFLs and things. And we've continued that, but we've always now used the economic argument first, rather the environmental argument with the businessman, because you have to talk to him in that language. And you have to subvert the system from within. You cannot work from... So, I mean, you can be a design activist, an environmental activist who's a designer, or you can work inside the system and try and change some mindsets there. So with Mr. Biyani, for instance, he would see the furniture that we were making, and he had started a home store. And one day he called me up and gave me a brief saying that, can you make furniture which reflects price with meaning? No, it's not making the lowest price, but whatever price the people are paying should have a meaning in terms of whatever. So getting values like authenticity, this anti-obsolescence, lasting for generations, all of that you weave into the conversation but never bring it up directly until it becomes their idea. And then they come back to you and say that, hey, I want this. And they're actually telling you what you want. So in a way, you're shaping the world you want, but in a very, very indirect, bending way. You bend in the breeze, but you don't break. But you then influence how the wind blows. You create the windbreaks or whatever. I mean, in design terms.
There's a reverse ripple effect.
Yeah.
Jacob, we know you as a creative person, right? Because designer Jacob came from a design institute, impacted the design community at large. Even in your stories, there is about how you inherited it, how it went on. And the parallel running story is the fact that there was enterprise that excited you when you were a kid, pre-teen almost, right? But if I was to ask you an honest question of whether you see yourself more as a creative person or an entrepreneur, which one would you choose?
I would describe myself as an entrepreneur who is a designer.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think from the time of my final project, where my final project itself was called The Design Entrepreneur, I take that back actually. There was a point when in my passport would say profession business. Today it says profession designer. So I've sort of come a full circle where I'm now interested also in the design process and how design is used as a tool for entrepreneurship. I started a course in Shrishti. I mean, it's not a course, it's one of the inputs which I think that all designers should go through. And I call it entrepreneurial design thinking. and we've been running it in the Bachelor of Vocation program. So I think, when you look at the whole enterprise process of building an enterprise, running an enterprise, there's a lot of design elements that come in. And design, to a large extent, is like a jackdaw. You pick up ideas from everywhere. The designer's job, in a sense, is to connect those ideas and then make sense out of that. In my own practice, I've found that if you ask me what is my superpower today, is I would say it's my ability to frame things and listen to multiple things that are happening, and then put it down as a sort of a framework that you can make sense of. How these pieces connect to each other and so on. What I was doing now in Goa. I mean, having shifted to Goa, away from the hustle and bustle of Bangalore. So I think part of that journey started on the day we started Idiom. In 2005, I said we started 1st April. 1st April, we had a board meeting of everybody. I mean, a huddle of everybody, of all our seniors, actually. And we sat down, I think, about 10 principles by which we would work. Sustainability was on top. Understanding business, talking in the language of the customer was another, and so on. Our second meeting was on succession. When do we guys step out of Idiom? And we were, at that point 7 founders. The folks from Tesseract and from eSign. We were 7. And we took a call then that in 5 years' time, we should clear the decks we would actually build Idiom there were 2 or 3 reasons why we set up Idiom. One was to do the projects of scale that a country like India needs. The second was to raise the profile of the profession and of designers, especially starting salaries. Because it had gotten to a point where a fresh engineer was earning more than a designer. If you got into Infosys or any of those places, not to speak of the MBAs. Like at the time that we were earning $500 when we came out of design school, our folks in IIM were earning 5,000. I mean, there was a
huge disparity, yeah.
But yeah, they were earning 10 times as much. So our aim was also to professionalize design and institutionalize design companies in a way that, one, there is longevity to the company, which we didn't achieve. And there is, you're upping the profile. So we actually managed to raise salaries quite a bit, so much so that a lot of our peers complained, saying that you guys are spoiling the market. We said, no, we're not spoiling the market. Why should only the senior guys drive up in a car and everybody else comes on a bicycle or a motorbike? That disparity we thought was bad. But the third thing was succession. That you can't be here forever. You should not be here forever. And how do you transfer your abilities to the next lot? So because of this institutionalizing of design, we also created a ladder of growth in Idiom. So you could join as a junior designer, become a senior designer, become a team leader, become a director, and then you could become a chief designer. And then you ran the company like a CEO or whatever. CEO we actually imported. We said we need management types for that. So we got a management guy who was a senior, who we were paying more than we were getting paid ourselves. Yeah, but our second meeting was really about succession and how do we plan for that and train the people. So, we started sending people out for conferences, for trade shows, where normally only the owners or the bosses go, our chaps were going for it. And even in Dovetail, for that fair in Düsseldorf, Euroshop, people were going, and they were not our senior most. I think Amitabh, I don't know if Amitabh ever went to Euroshop, but
Amitabh, I didn't go with Amitabh, but yes,
but you would have gone.
Yeah, I would have gone.
Yeah.
I have gone there.
Yeah, you've gone there. So that was something that we instituted. So, I mean, when you're talking about why did I shift to Goa? Well, I had stepped out of Idiom actively in 2013, and I said that, and what I sort of put on my CV is that I spent the first 25 years of my life changing business through design. And I want to spend the next 25 years of my life changing society through business and design. Right? Because I think there's a larger mandate also, which sort of fits into that thing of an earlier age of every professional contributing to building a nation, building a society. So as part of that, I sort of insisted with Neelam that you have to think of getting out of industry. And this was about 5-6 years ago. I said, now in another 5 years, you'll be 60 and it's time that you plan your succession. And it was a little difficult for her initially, but then she built up a team. We reorganized the company. So sort of mimic the idiom structure in some strengths, that we set up a bunch of senior people who became directors. And any of them could become the leader of so they were being groomed to one day lead the organization. And one of them today leads the organization. The next thing is that if you're as a founder, if you're there in office, it's not good. Yeah, because a lot of people will still come to you and you create a separate center of power. So being out of sight means being out of mind. So this need to physically remove ourselves from the
Organized.
place of action also became important. I think from 2005 onwards, everything that I've done, I've always looked at how long am I here? Am I working out my exit? And am I working out an exit in a way that the organization will continue?
Two things to this. We are talking to each other in front of you because this was an area of interest for us as to, you've already spoken about succession. Now, this is something that we have asked a lot of creatives on this chair, and whether people get a chance to share the table, right? You, by design, created organizations where you would pass on the reins to the next line of leadership. And what you said at the last statement before that is the fact that you were raising them. So it was not only planned. That would have allowed idiom design to continue.
Yeah.
What happened to idiom design as a result of which it did not continue? Was it a succession story, or was it an organized? And what was the story? You would know.
I think it's we sometimes we don't give culture its place. We were the product of two firms merging together, two firms with very distinct cultures. One firm was a family firm, a family-run firm, husband, wife.
Sonia and Girish.
Yeah. It doesn't matter who it was, but it's a family. There is a certain dynamic to that which was very different from the Tesseract thing. So, we could see it, that there was sort of, the space team and the product team followed a certain way of working. The graphics and the communication branding team had a slightly different way of working. When bad times happen, when things become tough, these differences become exacerbated. And we did not pay enough attention to creating a unified culture. And this is not just in our case, but why a lot of mergers and acquisitions eventually fail is because the cultures are different and not enough attention is being paid to culture. And there's a host of studies done in this area. So why idiom failed? I think it was this lack of, at the end of the day, cultural cohesion. Now, in hindsight, it's very easy to say it, but when it's happening, you're constantly firefighting, because we were in a downturn in the market. We were a firm that was geared to do large-scale projects. Our clients had slowed down. The whole real estate industry had slowed down. I mean, the 2008 crisis hit India. India got really hit by around 2011. So by 2013, we were really suffering our size. And then I think some kind of a unified culture would have. We had survived the storm earlier also, when things were not good. Across the board, we took cuts and, we were able to, we went out, every person in the company became a marketing person.
I remember that.
Yeah. And we went out on a tour of the country. We drove down to Hyderabad, Chennai, that, met clients, did a lot of work. The second thing is probably reliance, too much of reliance on one big client. Yeah. And then when you're in a firefighting situation, you're so busy delivering that you forget to work on your own health, organizational health. I think that's what ultimately led to it. And then I was brought back in 2015.
I'm aware of that as well. Yeah.
For me, it was just a question of hand-holding the team to take it over and run it. Yeah, it was coming along fine. The CEO unfortunately went through a personal tragedy at that point and had to drop out. And I didn't have the energy in me to do it all again. Again find a new person. So I actually proposed to the company that any of you want to take over this company, we will settle all the liabilities. You get all the IP and you run it. And that is what happened. I handed over the company to the two youngest people who were the ones who actually volunteered and said that, yeah, we'd like to give it a go. So it was like zero liability, but again, that didn't really work. Again, because of some outside issues, health issues and things like that. The people who took it on couldn't really. They had to take breaks.
They couldn't pursue.
They had to take breaks. Hopefully, at some point, they might get back into.
So Idiom still exists.
Idiom now exists as something called Idiom Circular Trust. What we also along this journey, so I decided to move from running a design for-profit enterprise into a for-profit social enterprise world. Where things are done more in a cooperative way, not just shareholders. I mean, it is still, it still works on a shareholder principle, but the idea was slightly socialistic in a sense that everybody is an owner. Anybody who works in the company, I mean, you have to earn your ownership, but then you then become a part owner of the company.
Like this is in belief, right? Or this is a value and not in
we were
shares.
I was actually training the people during the 2015 to we finally shut down in 2021.
Right.
When we shut down the consulting company and started Idiom Circular Services as a trust. And the people who took it over, Nandini and Disha, they wanted to focus more on circular businesses, working with circular businesses, setting up circular enterprises, that kind of thing, which was their belief. They both were put through a online course called Platform Cooperativism, which is being run by a guy from Parsons New School. He's been exploring this. There's this platformization of everything. So you have certain platforms like Uber, for instance, where you have a driver, you have a rider, you bring them together on a platform. Driver does not have any ownership. He's considered, the driver gets exploited. And at the end of the day, the driver gets exploited. And finally, sometimes the rider also gets exploited. Here we're looking at, he was proposing systems which the Kerala government was also interested in, of creating these cooperatives which are platformized. And we were looking at whether we could build a cooperative platform for designers. Right. So designers could be anywhere in the world. They come together on projects, but certain things like, medical insurance, some level of social security. So, part of your earning goes, so let's say you're a gig worker and you don't have work for 2 months. You can actually get a dole from the reserves that this cooperative has built up. So that was the idea. Right. And the people who were to run this company were actually, we all did the course together, the program together. And then we conducted that course as the India partners for two more years. So by the time we were all quite familiar with the language and things like that, I hope that picks itself up. But I think that that's a way forward. And after I left Idiom in 2013, I started working with industry. And
you're still the CEO of industry?
No, I stepped down 2 years ago. And now one of our directors, one of the senior directors is now the CEO, a guy named Neju. And he's really ramping it up.
He's come back externally, or he's somebody from?
He was somebody, he was an activist. He's cut his teeth on activism, Narmada Bachao and all that. I think he was one of those students who went to Odisha after the super cyclone.
Right.
Worked there. Then he joined the Narmada Bachao Andolan with Medha Patkar and all that, standing in the reservoir when the water was coming up. Then he was in Raichur running a small farmers collective. He heard about us, came to us and said that, look, you guys are doing something I'm interested in. So he worked with us for, I think, about 6 years. Then he left to start his own enterprise. Then he was CEO for a company called Safe Harvest. They work with farmer producer companies and things like that. After, I think, 4 years away, he came back. He came back, joined us, and at that time, he was running the foundation. We had a private company and a foundation. I mean, a social enterprise and a not-for-profit. So he was the COO of the non-profit. And I said that the day he left, I said, I will keep this seat warm for you because you're going to come back. Right? So we kept in touch with him even all the time that he was out because we wanted him back. Right. So he came back and then he said, I'm not ready to take this on. So another 3 years where Neelam and I were Neelam managing trustee and I was CEO. We were running the show, but he had already taken over running the finance of the place. And now he's the...
So industry is doing fine.
Industry is doing fine.
And it had the same policy of passing it down.
Yeah. So, I mean, what we tried to do at Idiom has finally
found
materialized
in
at least for me.
Right.
Neelam will have a
different
quite
point
a
of
different
That's
point
okay.
of view, I'm sure.
But
part of this thing of our, or at least my agreeing to move to Goa, because I said, look, I'm too old to shift now.
It was a plan kind of you made for yourself and it just seems to have worked out like this.
Yeah. And I had already made 2 houses in Bangalore. You know, that Koromangala house that you've been to, that was something that I'd built with Naresh. Naresh's wife had done the design. And the Horamau house, that again we had designed from Idiom. You know, my friend Akbar from Bombay, he had done the design and we'd got it built. But it was all built on the same principles of authenticity, using material forward. So it's soil cement block. We process our own sewage, generate our own power, harvest rainwater, etc. So I didn't want to do that one more time. So my Goa move was that I told my wife that, look, I'm not doing it. Get an architect, get a contractor. I don't want to build another house again in my life. But it never happens that way. So we did get an architect. We did get a contractor. Then I had to stay there and get that built.
I have a question to ask. I actually have 2 other questions to inquire into. And I think he made a very pertinent point. And he used 2 ideas as a part of the same conversation. You said, this is some time ago, you said value systems. What you end up transmitting is your set of values. And that was one idea that you shared. The other thing that you said is that when people collectively practice, your values show up in your behavior. When people collectively have this behavior within an organization, that shows up as culture. Right? Idiom, in some sense, is your baby. Because,
And we created a very strong work culture. But our organization culture, meaning in terms of I would say the governance, in a sense, that was not strong enough to take
I get that.
Yeah. But we created a very, very strong culture of working, which almost everybody. So I think since 85, from 85 to now, I think I've had about 2,000 people cycle through these organizations. And I can see very strong elements of this culture continuing in the work that they continue to do. You know, the way they approach design, the kind of design process that we built out for Idiom continues very strongly.
My question was, see, I get the logic of where you're coming from, and Idiom would inherit the values that you inculcated. You probably portrayed those values yourself as well in your behavior or whatever it was, and then collectively everybody emulated, and a culture was born.
And it was also aggregation.
Yeah. Industry, on the contrary, you weren't there to impact that. I mean, you came in later as an external person attached to it. How did you impact the culture there?
It was bringing in a lot more of the design process into what we were doing. And again, how do you transfer learning from one organization to another? So at Dovetail, we used to have a consultant who introduced us to lean, the concept of lean.
Production.
Yeah. And then I got interested in lean personally. And 2013, when I left Idiom, instead of looking at the lean side, which is what is really practiced in Europe, it's an Israeli guy, Goldrat.
Yeah,
Goldrat.
yeah.
Goldrat's thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lovely
Theory of
book as well.
constraints. Theory of constraints. We were practicing that in Dovetail. Then I went to Japan in 2013 and I did a course in Toyota on the Toyota system of production. It was funny because they said, "Who are you? Why do you want to do this program?" And I said, "I think we can use this methodology in handicraft production, hand production." They just couldn't figure it out. I had 3 rounds of interviews before they would take me on. It was a 15-day or a 10-day program where we were taught by the guys who created the Toyota system of production. They were all 70, the age group of 70 to 80. And they developed the system in the 60s, in the mid 60s when Toyota had a lot of trouble. So when I came back to industry, I actually started implementing this Toyota system of quality management, all this Kaizen and all that. We don't use those terms, but we practice, that. It came in very useful when we were supplying to clients like IKEA, which is, how do you make 1 lakh pieces of something with consistency in quality and deliver on time?
Right.
So that took a few years of building that in. Now, that's something a journey which started with Studio Line and then continued and it's come here. And I've been also I've incorporated Lean, the Toyota system of production, in my entrepreneurial design thinking course in Srishti.
Right.
So those BWalk kids also go through a version of this, of doing that. And we were also fortunate that, I don't know if John told you this story. I don't think he did.
Which is?
Geeta. We were working with Aditi School. John and I were working with designing Aditi School. When the new campus came up, then Tesseract was there. DAG had sort of splintered by then. So the job came to us, actually, the design part came to us, to Tesseract. And there was a certain incident that I had very little memory of. The architects of the Aditi School were students. They won a competition and they got the program. And then when it came to the implementation, doing the working drawings and all that, they didn't have the experience. So they brought in Michael and Majumdar to do it. And we were brought in as the interior and furniture designers. And we had to make a presentation one day in the new half-finished building. Presentation was at 8:30 in the morning. So we were there at 7:30. Room was dirty. There was construction material lying all over the place. It was a building under construction. Right. We picked up brooms and we cleaned up the room, put up our work. 8:30, we were ready. Anne Warrior, who was the managing trustee, she and Geeta came for the presentation, along with Mrs. Chandawakar. Right. The next room was the architects presenting, and they were still waiting for the masons to come so they could ask the masons to clean the room. So we finished our by the time we finished our presentation, they had got the room ready and they went in for the next presentation. But the big takeaway for Anne was, what made you guys clean the room?
Correct.
Her takeaway from the presentation was that. And I said that, look, NID, we learn to work with our hands, this, that, and the other. And at that time, I was working with Geeta and Anne to create a vocational training center at Srishti for people who are not academically inclined. And we're looking at a high-tech kind of ITI, modeled after GT&TC, that Government Tool Room and Training Center. So we had actually, and that NTTF, they make plastic injection molding tools and stuff. So we had got instructors from that. We were actually all set to launch that in Srishti. And Geeta said, take me to NID. I want to see where you guys studied. Took her there. She met Vikas, who was director at that time. She came back. So I asked her, like, what did you think? She said, "Ye to museum ban gaya." She said, it's like a design museum. Right. It doesn't have, there's no life in the place. Right. So she said, thank you very much for taking me there. You've showed me what I should not be doing. Right. So that whole open navigation, all of that came out of that. And Geeta still occasionally in meetings will say that she was inspired to start Srishti because we guys swept the room. So that's a
But that's
funny
that
origin story.
Sure, but it also makes a lot of sense, right? It kind of ties down the aspects that you're mentioning as to principally, if I loosely define values as something that is important to you at an individual level and collectively coming together, that becomes the premise for creating culture, which means a group of people will uphold a few things that are important to them. And there seems to be overlaps in that. There's more commonality than not.
I think it's also this thing of respecting labor, dignity for labor, and what anybody else can do, if you can do, there's nothing stopping you from doing it. And Gandhi would have talked about cleaning the loo. Anybody can clean a loo. You don't
but
need,
people won't do it. I mean,
people won't do it. But I think that's a kind of value. And I mean, for me, that's been a lived experience also. So, I mean, I have staff in the house, but I won't ask them to do anything that I won't do myself. And if they're not around, I will do myself. They see it. So, it works. It works very well. And, people who worked with us have been with us for decades. I mean, not very different from other
long
families in India. But it's a very different relation. It's I would say, slightly equal relationship than most others. I think that's what really worked for Geeta. So initial days, we actually helped set up the curriculum for Shrishti. Then I actually brought in a bunch of my friends to become the starting faculty. A.V. Verghese was my college buddy in Trivandrum. Poonam Kasturi, who led the foundation program, was my classmate.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So while I didn't have the time to be in Shrishti, I was part of the team that set it up back in the day. And then in 2013, when I stepped out of Idiom, first call I got was from Geeta. She said, "Come and meet me. I have something for you." So she went there. I went there and she said, "I want you to join us as a design principal." So I said, "Ye kya hota hai? What is a design principal?" She said, "No, you continue your practice. Whatever you're interested in, you do it. We'll build a practice around whatever you do." So I told her that, look, a lot of my work has been around retail design, and I'm not interested in doing retail design. What I'm interested now is in social enterprise, and that's what I'm going to do. She said, "Fine."
Nice.
So I set up the lab. I set up a lab there called Impact Edge, which looked at how do you train people to become social and entrepreneurs, but using design as the driver. So we've had about 250 students over the last 10 years. We started in 2014 and it continued until a couple of years ago. And every year we've had 10, 15 students who do their final projects with us. And we place them in NGOs across the country that we know. And then they do projects. Several of them have gone on to become entrepreneurs themselves.
I want to ask you one more question. There's something that we spoke about impermanence, right? We've spoken about transmission, that is legacy, which addresses the point of impermanence. And there's also a personal question for me, because something happened at the turn of 40. Suddenly, I mean, this literally happened to me, and I called up my friend saying that, "Hey, are you guys thinking about how our old age is going to be?" I don't know why it's coming to my mind right now. And it so seemed that in my circle of friends, most people were talking about this topic. Like, it's happening. We are thinking, like, what happens to us? I mean, there are people who've got kids. I mean, one can almost take it for granted that the kids are there. Not that they will leave whatever they're doing, and you should not ask for it as well. But, something to look forward to. If you were to go through a situation, right? You have somebody that is yours and your legacy in some sense, your progeny, your whatever, who will take decisions on your behalf. That's good enough taking care. What happens when we go? This is a conversation I had with my friends, and a lot of people in our generation have chosen to not have the next generation or not have kids, right? And thus, this is a very live question. So where does our life align to? Our life typically aligns to our friends and family and what was already important for us. That is something that we uphold a little more rigidly, probably. So loosely, what is important to us is what is valuable to me. That's my value system. The way I make decisions and think, I uphold them. In a situation wherein you will be leaving behind legacy, right? You've created some for yourself. Neelam has done that. John has done that. There is enough body of work and people who you've trained and mentored. In such a terrain, how can this be thought through better? A more simpler question would be, let's say if I am seeking advice from you, saying that I'm in my late 40s. I have very little time to do all the things that you've done. My life has gone in a different road. How would you suggest that I think forward for myself, wherein I've still got a bit of time left? I'm enthusiastic, but I don't have the body that I had 25 years ago when we met. Right? And you know this journey better than I do because you're a generation ahead. You're still keeping up relevance and purpose and creating impact or creating value in society at large. What would your advice to me be?
See, I'll have to answer this sideways. One is that you can't deliberately create a legacy.
You can't.
You can't. Yeah. It's like starting a business only to make money.
Sure.
Yeah. You can't. You can, but you won't succeed. You're starting a business to address an issue that people have and they find value in what they do. And money, if you got that right, money will come. Otherwise, it won't come. Sometimes, even if you got everything right, money won't come. But that's okay. And if you do it, but you don't do something to get that end result. You have to allow it to. So for me, it's like my view on luck is creating the conditions for luck to happen. You cannot be lucky. You cannot wish, I'm going to be lucky today.
Yeah, you can't expect it either.
Yeah. But then you can make yourself open to being lucky, which is, you spot opportunity, you're curious, and then luck happens to you. Similarly, I think legacy building, you cannot go out to build a legacy. A legacy is built by what you do. So then it comes to what do you do? You do things that make sense to you. I think that our starting thing was also when we started off is we'll do things that make sense to us. Sometimes we forget and we drift away. Now, there was a period when I first joined, when I started working with industry, they were doing printed imitations of, let's say, block print, hand block print. And so one day I just called a meeting and I said, what do we stand for? Because they were getting into these pressures of, having a shop. Selling thing, cost pressures. There's feedback saying that your stuff is too expensive. There was also this thought in the back of the head that we have to democratize this consumption of crafts. It cannot be a luxury it can't be a luxury consumption item and things like that. So, but then we had a rethink and said like, okay, what do we stand for? And we came up with 5 principles, which was using natural materials, using design, being authentic, and there were 1 or 2 others. I can't remember. But the moment we clarified how we did what we did, these things started getting eliminated by themselves. So that's one. The other was a lesson that it was a very, very side encounter. I had gone for one of these World Economic conferences in Thailand. And there was a professor from one of the universities there. Yes. Samsuk University. I can't remember the name. He used to be the chief sustainability officer for something called the Siam Cement Company. Set up in 1906 or 1907 by King Rama IV. So Thailand did not make cement, but it had deposits of gypsum.
Okay.
So gypsum was available, but cement was not being made. And they were importing cement. And the king said, there has to be a cement factory in my country. So he assembled a board, no, police chief, army chief, whatever. Said, "Abhi company shuru karo, you're the board of directors." Now, and he said, "Go and meet the abbot of the Theravada Buddhist thing, and he'll give you, go consult him." So these guys were a little upset, saying that, what is a monk going to tell us about business? But the king told them, so they went. So monk said, "Okay, show me your business plan." So they showed a 5-year projection or something. Said, "Yeah, to theek hai, but I want to see your 100-year projection." So they had to go back with a 100-year projection. And this is something that I use in my classes as well. And with a lot of the consulting that I do. What is your 100-year vision? Because when you look at 100 years from now, it's not even your grandchildren, it's your great-grandchildren or your great-great-great-grandchildren who are going to be around. And you have absolutely no say on how they're going to live. So even if you're building a legacy, it's not for your kids. It's for humanity. And if you're doing it for 100 years, then what are the decisions that you will take to be relevant 100 years from now? That's a very powerful thing. So they turned out to be the first cement company in the world that would do strip mining. You cut down forests, you excavate the topsoil, and then you dig out all the gypsum, and then you leave a hole in the ground and you go to the next place, which is how we do our iron ore mining. And, all that poisonous stuff leaches in and, it's weird colored water. Nothing grows there. It's a waste land. They were the first company in the world that started covering up the mines when the mines were exhausted. And their mines from that time today, you can barely make it out from virgin forests. If they replanted over it and all that. They didn't say that this is an externality. They factored it into their cost of production, and they did it. Now, that's how a 100-year vision works. So I think if we, if you're talking about a legacy, if you start looking at things with a 100-year vision for anything that you do. I mean, even the house that I built, and my first house, I told my architect that 20 years, I wanted to last for 20 years. So after 20 years, probably the real estate value will not, somebody's going to come and knock it down. So why should I waste money? Yeah, I built my first house for 2.75 lakhs, that one in Coromandel.
Right.
At that time, the prevailing price, if I'd got it done conventionally, it would have cost me about 5.5 to 6 lakhs. I got it done for 2.75. That thing still hasn't fallen down. There's still somebody using that place. Yeah. The next house that I did in Horomau, again, I said 20 years life. So it's all cement block. Tomorrow, if I have to demolish it, there is not much. There's hardly any concrete used. Very little concrete, very little steel. And it's worked very well. My son lives there now. The house that I've built right now, it's sort of laterite. But we bought a wooded property. I mean, it was a disused part of an estate or something. So cashew trees, it is full of full-grown trees.
Right.
So we had to then plant the house in such a way that we didn't knock off trees. So I couldn't make one building. So I made 3 separate buildings and, between in the clearings. And we're now doing a little bit of landscaping, I guess, but to make sure to slow down the water so the water goes down in it. So that, if somebody doesn't knock it down and build a apartment block there after my time, it will be a nice place to still go to. The trees will be nice and old and good.
Right.
And I don't garden there. So it's a 1.5 acre plot. I've built on maybe 3/4 of an acre is where the houses are. The rest of it, I don't even walk in there. I've just left it wild. I don't know what it is like. I made a peripheral path, but I injured my leg some 6 months ago. So I haven't walked into that place since I built I don't know what's in there, but I'm sure there's some wildlife out there. There are snakes and insects and things like that. So I think in terms of my own philosophy, and I can't say that everybody has to follow this philosophy, was, when my father became old, I was thinking about his life, and I said, okay, if I were to describe my father's life, in a sense, what was his philosophy? It was about treading lightly. You have a very light footprint on the... And that's how they lived. The garbage that came out of the house every day was just this much.
Yeah.
Everything else was recycled there. Like you said, plastics never go out.
Yeah.
They just keep getting reused. But I think he had a policy of keeping his footprint small. And I think I have adopted that policy of how do you, and I remember reading a poem written by an ex-Jesuit priest. It's called, anyway, forget the name, but it had this line, treading, I think the collection of poems was called Treading Lightly on Planet Earth or something like that. So I think that's been a philosophy for me. So if you look at the super long term, not at your children or your grandchildren, but what will happen 100 years hence, because you can't predict whether your children will have children or not. What do you leave behind? What's your footprint? Is it a positive footprint? And so a lot of the work that I'm doing now has got to do with regeneration. Whether it's this World Design Protopolis that we're doing in Bangalore, or what we're doing at industry, where we're looking at creating what we call regenerative enterprises that leave the place better than we received. So it's not an extractive economy, but it's a giving back economy. Also, how you look at people. What is your circle of influence like? Are they peopled by characters who take away, or are they peopled by characters who give? You can choose your circle of influence. So yeah, so that's part of my current journey now of being part of the regeneration movement. And as part of that, we run an entrepreneurship program called Regen Earth for social entrepreneurs. We run an online program right now.
Jacob, I wanted to ask you, what has been your experience of having this conversation with us?
I think these conversations allow you to crystallize stuff in your head, which very often you don't have the time to do. You're examining your own head, like having brain surgery with the audience helping you do it. Yeah. So it's also picking out insights of, and there's a lot of retrospecting, right? And there's also future-specting. Our conversation has been more of the retrospecting. But I think this also gives, to me, it gives me a little more clarity into what I should be doing further. And this conversation actually opens up that. Like I said that, okay, these days I seem to be doing more stuff around the regeneration space. Now, if there's one thing that my takeaway from this conversation is there is one thing that I should actually focus on and not get diverted into other things, is to focus on this. What is the activity of regeneration that I can continue to do and build on? Yeah.
Right. Cool. I think we'll stop here. Thank you so much for doing this with us. It was absolutely informative, but I have a lot of other things to ask off the camera, so we'll do that.
Do give this episode a listen and let us know what you think. If you like what you see and hear, do share it amongst your friends. Thank you so much.